Wish I would have known. Hi, and thank you for joining the Wish I Would Have Known podcast, or as we like to call it, WIWHK. I'm your host, Troy Vera. I'm inspired by the variety of surprise twists and turns that people have taken in their careers, and will continue inviting them to share their stories with you. Our guests represent diverse lines of business. You'll meet social workers, symphony musicians, racehorse owners, radio personalities, human resources leaders, commercial real estate lenders, filmmakers, and school principals, just to name a few. Join us and hear what has worked for them and what might just spark a fire in you. This podcast, as always, is going to be a conversation between friends and peers, nothing too crazy or fancy. We'll be sharing life's experiences in the interest of helping you grow and succeed in your current or even a new career field. Today's guest is Chris Payne, and he's joining us today to talk about his career journey as a radio personality. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Troy. How are you?
Doing great. Tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself.
Let's see. I have wanted to do, I'm currently working as a program director for two radio stations in Reno, Nevada. One is what is referred to as an active rock radio station. That means we play a lot of current music, current rock music from like 3 Days Grace, Five Finger Death Punch. Trying to think any other bands that might be viable. Also Falling in Reverse, Sleep Theory, and a number of other groups as well. We also fall back on what is referred to as a gold format, where we have bands like Metallica, Nirvana, Bush, Buckcherry, Lit, and stuff like that. Bands like that will also be in the format. And then I also program our classic rock radio station here in town, 105.7 KOZZ. And obviously classic rock lends itself with pretty much no explanation. We play everything from the Doors and the Doobie Brothers to Metallica and even some other like Three Doors Down, U2, Aerosmith, and that's that. And I've been doing radio for, gosh, a little over about 35 years now, on and off. Collectively, like if you were to take out the months in between the times when I didn't have a radio job, that would put me at about doing radio for about 32 years, just a little over 32 years total. It's what I've wanted to do since I was 8 years old. Also being in the same boat as wanting to be a professional soccer player and being in the band Kiss. And that's what I wanted to do as a kid. So I just wanted to be in the limelight somehow, and I found my way in there. And so because of radio, I've been very fortunate to have also landed an opportunity to be the MC for our AAA baseball team here in Reno, Nevada, which is the Reno Aces. We're the 2012 AAA champion. We're also the minor league affiliate, the AAA affiliate for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Seen a lot of players come and go, including a number of players who are in the World Series. And it was great to be friends with them and work alongside them and get to see some of them return to Reno last year and express how excited I was to see them in the World Series. So they felt the energy with that. I'm also the MC for our university's men's basketball, women's basketball, and football team, which is Nevada WIWHK. And then I'm also the MCPA for our semi-pro hockey team, which is the Reno Ice Raiders. In the interim, I also like to travel, sleep in, drink coffee, spend time with my girlfriend, and not necessarily all in that order.
If you were going to be a member of the band Kiss, the intro comes on. You're one of the best. You got the best. The most dangerous band in the world, Kiss.
No.
Who would you be?
I wanted to be Ace Frehley.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Space Ace.
So then, what kind of face paint would you have had though? Would you have had
to? If you have to replace Ace, because when Vinnie Vincent stepped in to replace Ace Frehley, he had an Ankh painted on his face, which was weird. But I mean, that was his thing. So Vinnie wasn't Ace, and really there is only one Ace Frehley. So Tommy Thayer is still Tommy Thayer. He's not Ace Frehley at the end of the day. Eric Carr, same thing. He wasn't Peter Criss, and Eric Singer's not Eric Carr or Peter Criss. So, all respect to all the musicians and everybody along the way. Bruce Kulick, try to think if I'm missing. Oh, Mark St. John, who was on one Kiss record. He was on the Animalize album. He was also in a band called White Tiger with not Mike Tramp from White Lion. He was in a band called White Tiger, and I forget who else was in that band, but yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Just having such a encyclopedic knowledge of music, I'm sure really helps your daily life as a program director, with your career as a DJ and just somebody who surrounds themselves with all things sound. I heard a really cool quote that art is how we decorate space and music is how we decorate time.
Nice.
And I'll have to figure out who that quote's attributed to, but just so much has been put through the listenable media, and
Hmm.
really neat that you kind of staked your claim in the world of media. One of the things that you've earned your way into the Nevada Broadcasters Hall of Fame, and that's pretty phenomenal. That's an accomplishment that you can hang your hat on. So, who was an important career role model in your early work life?
That would it would absolutely be my some of the people that I grew up listening to here in Reno, and starting with a lot of the AM DJs who I would hear their voices sometimes. When you hear that voice and you think like, do they actually talk like that, or is that just for the radio? And when you hear these voices and then you meet the people, it's like, wow. And long before the internet and photographs and phones and websites and all that stuff existed, you only heard voices, so you could only picture what you hear in your mind. So before, and I also became victim of that as well, because there were a lot of people who, when they would meet me, they're like, wow, you look nothing like I had pictured. I'm like, what do you mean? They said, I envision you to be about 6'2", 6'3", like surfer kind of blonde hair, and you don't have that. And I said, nope, not a surfer guy at all. I'm from California, but nope, not a surfer guy. And it's just little fun things like that. And we meet a lot of great people along the way. So I'm really grateful for everybody who's been part of the journey.
And you were mentioning in one of our little sort of pre-conversations about Rick Dees and some of the other folks who have just put their mark on radio. There's another guy named Don Blue in the San
Hmm.
Francisco Bay Area, and so many of them have that life away from the airwaves that you've been able to have, and I think that's really cool. So,
Thank you.
as as somebody who is sort of getting their chops and learning the ins and outs of the industry, what class or training would you wish you would have spent a little bit more time, digging into that, even though you've achieved a lot, you think may have, greased the rails a little bit, made things just a little bit easier?
I wish I would have had a little more patience in learning different types of recording software along the way. There were a couple of platforms that I gravitated toward real fast, and because of their efficiency and the ease of using them, I chose to really only want to use those. And when it came to using other platforms, it was tough because life is a learning experience, and you need to absorb as much as you can along the way. And I kind of at times planted my flag and said, this is where I want to be, and this is what I'm comfortable with, and I don't want to know anymore.
So, are there any certain platforms or tools that as somebody is learning the business or audio engineering in general, what do you think somebody should look into either investing in or kind of getting it some tutorials and guidance on?
I would say, like, try to learn as much as you can. Adobe is an incredible platform to learn and edit with, both video, audio, photography, a number of things. Like Adobe, I think that may be the number one in the world. I could be wrong, but I have a feeling I'm right. Another platform for recording would be Pro Tools. That's another great one to learn.
And is that used sort of within the walls of a radio station?
We use Adobe here. We used to use a software called Software Audio Workshop, I think is what it was called. And then there was Saw Plus and Saw 32, and I think it made it up to Saw 64 before then everybody started transferring over to Adobe. And I wound up learning Adobe after I moved back to Reno from Sacramento 20 years ago in 2004. And from that moment forward, that's when I like, this is the platform I want to use for the rest of my life.
Okay, yeah, that's great because in the marketing world, I learned a lot of the web development skills and tools. PHP, HTML, SQL, and all that. And as long as you know how to do the foundational work, you can
Hmm.
kind of plug in your knowledge to whatever. If you get a job with another consultancy opportunity or whatever, you may not know that exact one, but you know the underpinnings, you know, the
Yep.
foundational knowledge, and it doesn't matter what brand is on there, you know how to set up X.
Hmm.
Sure, there's also kind of a fair knowledge of maybe XML or some of those things that are required, so that way you can have the feeds and even the sort of behind the scenes stuff, like the little words that show up on everybody's radio that says this is the song that's playing.
Yep.
Is that kind of built into these platforms also?
Yeah, so that's a software called RDS,
Okay.
and RDS it shows it displays the band and the song title and the radio station name, all that stuff.
Oh, that's really cool. So,
Hmm.
if there's a leading voice or expert in the field, who would you name that as?
Wow, in terms of imaging, like production voices in between the songs and all that.
This is imaging is kind of a new term. I'm really happy to kind of learn it.
You hear different like production elements and what is referred to as the imaging elements, like in between the song, like a song plays and so a little something appears in between that and the next song, and so on and so forth. That's referred to as radio imaging.
Interesting.
And yeah, so one of the leading guys I've followed for the better part of 20 years now, over 20 years. His name is John Frost.
Mhm.
And John Frost has a company called Frost Bites, Bytes.
Okay.
And John's mind works unlike any other mind I've ever heard before in my life. Like he so many like it's almost like he can create like a 15-second say piece of imaging or a 10-second piece of imaging that is very what seems to be like very Family Guy inspired or something, and there's just
Mhm.
like a quick jab or whatever, like all these things happen and you might be three or four things into it, but then all of a sudden realize like, oh my God, this just like he said this, he said that, and like everything is hitting you in a very domino effect kind of way.
Mhm.
By the time everything is getting to you, like you're already moved on and you're into the song, but you're still laughing about the previous element that was just on the air.
I would imagine it's very similar to the dynamics of comedy writing, where you
Very
have
much so.
maybe like a slow punchline that
Hmm.
eventually will come around, or maybe a reference to a certain line in a song, and then maybe 10 minutes later you're going to hear that song. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's good. Or you hear somebody repeating a joke around town or at work, like, yep, that was during my show.
Absolutely. Yeah, and and there will be some people who they'll remember certain things that you've said and certain things that you've done, and they'll hang on to it. And it doesn't matter if it's something that happened 6 weeks ago, 6 minutes ago, or 6 years ago. If they have been waiting to meet you at a live broadcast, they'll come up and that's the one thing they've been hanging on to, and they will tell it to you.
Yeah, there was a guy in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, a guy named Jeff Blasey, who was always good for one of those like compact one-liners. And back in the 80s, it was really hard to meet somebody out and around, but he would
Hmm.
eventually show up at like a county fair or something like that, doing a meet and greet. And yeah, we would all just kind of stand in line, waiting to get our T-shirt or our CD signed or whatever, and do that zinger. And you gotta have to have a good nature about it. You know, you probably heard that thing 1,000, 10,000 times, but hey, smile, take the picture. I heard a really great quote from a sports star that they were at a autograph signing, and they were the veteran, and somebody was like, you know what? Don't you ever get tired of just smiling and signing your name all the time? And they say, you know what? I've signed my name 100,000 times. That's the first picture that they're ever going to have of me.
Yep. Yep.
And that's what makes it special. Transitioning from, like you're saying earlier, this person is a real human being. Bridge that gap and kind of suspend disbelief that someday when somebody gets to meet you at the ballpark or around town, hey, oh my gosh, that's Chris, woo!
Yep, and there are people out there who, in fact, I had a conversation with a radio listener the other day. We were talking about a few things, and I said, the first thing that like when you win something, you can't win something again for, up to 14 days. She goes, yeah. I go, you did win something about a week ago. She goes, oh man, because she was trying to win concert tickets.
Mm.
I said, yeah. And then she goes, yeah. So I guess I hope I didn't ruin anybody's chance of winning anything. I go, no. I go, you didn't. And then I kind of went into this a little bit of a dissertation of how 20 years ago, the version of me from 20 years ago would have freaked out on her,
Mhm.
and like freaked out on the fact that she was trying to either be greedy or do whatever. And like I was like, I'm really surprised at myself for having moved forward past that part of my own life where I understand that people sometimes they make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, and I don't, I might hold myself to a very high regard in that sort. And so I might get ticked off at my own idiocy, and then realize like, it's not until someone notices that you've done something or you've drawn attention to it, or have you made a complete mistake. So it's a weird rub.
Yeah, and you also run the risk of kind of tainting your, for lack of a better term, your personal legacy, because then
Hmm.
every time they're going to think of something like, man, that Payne guy is a real jerk.
Yep.
I made an honest mistake and he made me feel like a child. And so if somebody wants to go into the field, what's something that they should either avoid or ignore? Something that's just going to make them a little bit better at what they do.
I would think, be open with communication, listen to ways for people to help you, and be open to constructive criticism.
And you kind of have to market yourself the right way. Your personality may not exactly always be your on-air personality, but you understand when you're doing that, people don't understand that you might be a little bit
Hmm.
more introverted. You want to just
Yep.
have your cup of coffee, sit there with your girlfriend instead of having people come up to you for a selfie or an autograph and break that wall, so to speak. When the time
And
presents itself, I'm sure you're gracious, but you want to be like, just give me some space, thanks.
yeah, I mean, there's a Pantera song called 5 Minutes Alone that was written for that exact moment.
Yeah.
And when, like 30 years ago, when they released the album Far Beyond Driven, like I had a chat because I used to be friends with those guys. And I remember asking Daryl, I was like, 5 minutes alone. He goes, man, sometimes you just need 5 minutes alone. He goes, no matter what, no matter, like everything you have to do, family and work and press and songs and this and that, like as he's stacking everything up, he goes, sometimes you just need 5 minutes alone just to collect your thoughts.
Probably just kind of lock yourself into a room, and it might even be the bathroom, right?
Hmm.
So on the flip side of that, networking with your peers, getting together with like minds, kind of speaking the language of the industry. Do you get together with other radio folks and do mixers or trade shows?
There was a time when I used to I used to attend a lot of radio conventions, and we used to meet up and we talk shop, like, what works for your audience, what's working for your audience, and what hasn't worked. And we try to have these conversations with each other to where we learn along the way what to do and what not to do.
So I'm sure there's some shared knowledge. Some might call it, the group think or the hive mind.
Hmm.
That programming music for a certain city, a certain segment of the local culture, kind of has its own interesting challenges. And are there certain things that you kind of always have in mind when you're, let's say, do you program over the course of a month, over a season, over is there
No.
like I know there's like radio sweeps, for instance, for some
Yeah.
stations, but is there a time frame and kind of a methodology, a method to the madness, so to speak?
So, for instance, like right now, we're in a bit of a short week here. So I already have our classic rock station scheduled for the entire week. So the staff on that station can go and look at their shows and prep, their breaks according to what's already there. And the other station, the active rock station, KDOT, like I've got that all the way done through Thursday, which would be Thanksgiving, seeing that we're doing this podcast at this point. But I'm trying to get ahead and do Friday right now. There's a slight hiccup with my scheduling software, which is kind of frustrating me because I'm like it's hanging me up. So after you and I get done with our chat, I get to call our engineer and go, "Hey, so there's one part of this clock that's not working, and I want to know why it's not working. It's frustrating me." So it's generally though I try to always schedule at least 2 to 3 days ahead, if not depends on the station, but anywhere from 2 to 3 days to sometimes a week.
That's the thing about being an active professional in an always growing field. There's going to be something new to learn.
Yep.
Right now in the marketing world, we're having to deal with the demise of the advertising cookie, and there's a moving target, and Google's in charge of a bunch of stuff, and I'm sure that you have your own compliance issues and things like that that you need to stay
hmm
ahead of. So as the title of the podcast hints at, what do you wish that someone would have told you early on to be, as the title of this podcast hints at, what do you wish that someone would have told you to be a little bit more successful or perhaps even at peace in your career?
Hmm. I would say market yourself better,
Yep.
but in the time frame that I came up in radio versus what radio is now, like there's this, we're in such a digital age of radio that you're foolish if you're not on social media and marketing yourself that way and branding yourself with a number of nonprofits and other things outside of radio, because radio is only here for a little while. And it's actually a big part of what opened the door for me, aside from working in radio. It's like being a part of the radio station got me on with the AAA baseball team, which then led to the working with the university and the hockey team. So if I wasn't back on the radio, because at the time in 2022, in the summer, about 2.5 years ago,
Mhm.
I wasn't even on the air at all. I had all these gigs. I was managing social media for businesses, just going along, and all of a sudden, opportunity presented itself, and the program director of the radio station asked me, he goes, "Hey, would you have time to be part of the station on the weekends?" I said, "Sure, why not? I'll help you out for a hot minute. I have no problem helping the team." And then 3 months later, they moved me to from part time to afternoon drive. And I was like, okay, but I'm still not going to leave any of the things I rebranded myself for in order to do radio. That's just dumb. So when I had that conversation with the PD, with the general manager, like they were all good with it. But a friend of mine who works for Metallica's management, he asked me, hey, so when it came down to going back to KDOT, did you take the job because you need radio or radio needs you? And I said, at the risk of sounding full of myself, which I'm not by any stretch, I go, I did it because I think radio needs me. I said, this city in particular is very devoid of on-air personalities. We have I would say we have people who are on the air,
Mhm.
and then we have some people who are actual personalities. And those people are very few and far between versus just hearing a talking head on the air.
Yeah.
And that's unacceptable. So when you hear these talking heads, it's why am I listening to the radio? I can get Spotify in and or any streaming service without people, without personality, if that's how it's going to be, and there's no commercials. Or tune into the radio, give the people, and this is another phrase I like to live my life by, give people reasons to tune in, not excuses to tune out.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I really like that, because it reinforces your value as, heck, an entertainer.
And
Yep.
you'll always have somebody like sometimes they're looking for an excuse to not do this or not eat that or whatever. It's not a reason to eat it or a reason to be there or a reason to attend the event. They're actually making excuses, and it's silly because like, oh, I gotta go, take my girlfriend to dinner. You can choose to do that stuff. I mean, if it's an anniversary thing or a date night or something, okay.
Mhm.
But the dust that's on the floor in your place can be vacuumed tomorrow if there's a show that's happening tonight that a bunch of your friends are going to, even if you don't want to be there, but they want you to be there because they enjoy hanging out with you. You go and you make the most of it.
Yeah, have the experience because you're gonna
hmm
you're gonna see it on Instagram or or hear about it the next day and say, you know what? Yeah, I really missed out. I could have
Yep.
I could have given my dog a bath another time.
Yep.
So, in your opinion, would you rather have fast and lucrative success or slow and deliberate growth?
When you're slow to surface, you're able to correct any mistakes along the way. If everything is just overnight or is so moves at such a pace that you're unable to control the situation or the surroundings, that's tough.
Hmm. You can have a balance, but you really kind of have to be humble about how it comes out, right?
Absolutely. I mean, being humble is that goes a long way in this business. And there are some people who I've worked with and who I've networked with, even just been around, and like being humble is not one of their virtues.
So I would say that you probably lead by example then, by just loving the work, doing the work, and showing people what it's really like to thrive in the field.
I'm grateful for it because, when you're given opportunities, you're given chances to here's a microphone. It's going to be placed in front of you. You prep your break. You think about what you're going to say. You try to be as mindful as possible. And there have been times where in my career, I have not exactly said the best things on the air at times. It's not that I'm swearing. It's the fact that I'm just not smart at times. That's really the only way to put it. But I've always tried to do my best to be mindful of my surroundings and be very aware of who I am and my role as a programmer and influences as on the staff and all that too. That's a big thing.
But it feels almost like you're on a reality show of sorts because the cameras are always on, the microphone is almost always in front of you.
Yeah.
You have that moment of humanity or humility or just, I wish I could take that one back, but oh well, it's out there to the world. You see these cooking shows, and a chef makes kind of an easy mistake, or something happens,
Hmm.
just gets out of control, and you lose your cool. But hey, you know what? Just get on with it, and still be a good person despite all the challenges.
That is true.
So if somebody were to, let's say, start up at the station and want to get to know you, what's your work language? What's something that people can use to kind of associate with you, get to know you? For me, it's understanding and recognition. What about for you?
How can I help? What can I do? What can I learn? Do you have time? Can I shadow you? Is there something, a task you can assign me? Those are all very, very helpful ways to be a part of the team.
So collaboration and
Hmm.
in that way also there's that warm level of respect, the respect for
And
chain
when
of command or knowledge.
And when you show that you can be a team player, that you want to be on the team, not there for yourself. Like there was a company that I worked at about 10 years ago, and there were five of us up sharing one office in the building, and each little by little, each one of them started to pick themselves off. And there was me, and then four other people, and little by little, one after the other just started knocking themselves off, and that left me in the office to be in there by myself. So once that happened, I asked the operations manager, I go, hey, so I said, if we're not hiring anybody to be up here with me, can I just clear out all the desks in here and go take everything downstairs? He goes, okay, sure. And then he thought about it as I'm doing it. He goes, wait a minute, that means your office is going to be bigger than mine. I go, okay. Like, that's how it goes.
It is what it is, huh?
Yeah.
So we were talking earlier about networking and kind of getting together with people. So if somebody were just to kind of saunter up to you at a backyard barbecue and just kind of ask, we all get lost in jargon. We start talking about our own company language and all that. But how would you, typify what you do? What's the quick little elevator pitch of Chris Payne?
Hmm. So I'm trying to think now. This kid came up to me the other night on where I was going to work a women's basketball game, and I'm minding my own business, and I'm walking from point A to B on the campus, and all of a sudden I hear like these footsteps come running up behind me, and this kid was like, excuse me," and I turn around and I said, "Hey, how are you?" And he goes, "You're the Aces guy," and and that's the thing. Like I'm not, and that's another thing too. If I can kind of divert to part of the other conversation
Yeah.
in this chat, people in the city, they don't necessarily know me as the guy on the radio, or Nevada WIWHK guy, or the Aces guy. Like, I'm known as different things to different people. So for him to come and call me the Aces guy, I kind of laughed about it for a second, but in a fun way. I said, yes, I am. And he goes, yeah, man, I knew it. I saw you, and I wanted to say that you have such an impact on me and my family when we go to the games, and we love your energy and we love everything you do, and like the games wouldn't be the same without you there. And I thanked him. He goes, no, really, man, I mean it. Like, we think the world of you. And I was like, wow, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. And he goes, yeah, absolutely. I said, are you going to the game? He goes, oh yeah, I'm in the band. I go, you're the band? He goes, yeah. I go, all right, let's talk about you for a minute. And I said, the impact that you and your bandmates have on us in the marketing department and in promotion. I said, we watch you guys. We know that it takes a skill to play a song in 13 seconds or 30 seconds. It takes a skill to do certain dance moves with your instrument while still staying in time and in key, and watching the conductor and doing everything. I said, as much as you might be in awe of what I do at the stadium, I want to tell you right now that I am completely, like, we are all completely in awe of what you guys do as the band. He was like, wow, thank you. I said, I don't know if you hear that or if you hear that enough, but it's all true.
Yeah, sometimes the hardest workers get the fewer pats on the back. So that was really good. And I'm sure when he's going to be standing out there in either the blowing wind or the freezing cold or whatever that is, that word of encouragement is going to echo in the back of his ears, saying, you know what, we're more than just garnish on this field or noise in the background. We're making an impact too, and that's that point of pride. I think that's really cool. So as far as a strategic career goal for the next 3 to 5 years, what drives you? What do you have going on?
Just the motivation to be better today than I was yesterday, and have tomorrow be better than today. Because if we can execute a contest on the air, or if we can engage the audience in a conversation, in a phone call, then that's a win. And the audience then takes that moment and they share it with their friends, or if they hear their voice played back on the air in a recorded phone call, that kind of engagement, that's a big part of what also drives us.
Yeah, that's that little bit of I don't know, narcissistic glee. You hear your voice on the radio, or you're part of a playback on another a highlight reel or something like that. Um,
Hmm.
when I was younger, I won a contest on MTV, and for about a week or so, they would play little snippets of the winners when they picked up the phone from Yo MTV
Hmm.
apps. And I won this, big old gift kit. It was a boombox and a couple tapes and a shirt and a hat. I mean, it was 1989, and I did a call in. I got to talk to Dr. Dre and Ed Lover, and
Wow.
they would play the little sound bites of, like, "Hey, did I win?" kind of thing. And it was really neat. I'd tell my friends, "Okay, watch between 3 and 5 because I think they're gonna play the commercial again." And it was just that little moment of like, wow, it goes
Yeah.
beyond just tuning in. We're part of something. We're part of a bigger community, and I think that's what we all really crave. We want to be
Yep.
part of something bigger. That's why social media is so prevalent and people getting involved. And I think that's so heartwarming that people feel that connection.
Hmm.
So,
It's absolutely.
when it's time to kind of switch off the mic, turn off the on-air light, do you see yourself retiring, or what's the finish line look like for you?
Honestly, if I can do this until I can, if I can do any and or all of what I'm doing until I can't, that's the whole goal. Because when I hear people talk about the word retirement, I questioned, like, at first, like, I would always see, like, oh, in retirement you can blah 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 and all the things of retirement. Like, what the hell is this? So one day I came across a conversation between some guest services people at the baseball stadium, and it was like four or five guys, and they're all yucking it up and doing their thing. And as they're talking amongst one another and they're going about their business, all of a sudden I thought, okay, what do you like? What are you guys talking about? What's happening here? And they were like, oh, we're just talking about retirement. I go, retirement? They go, yeah, we're all retired. I go, what are you doing here? They go, well, we're working. I go, doesn't isn't that the opposite of retirement? Well, we can, when you're retired, you can still work X amount of hours. And I go, so what do you do when you're retired? Like, what do you do when you're not here? And they all kind of look at each other like, Well, nothing. And they all kind of laughed it up. I go, that sounds boring. And they all just kind of like stopped and looked at me. And I went, anyway, have a good game, guys. And I walked away. Because I'm like, I don't want to sit around and do nothing. I don't want to be bored. I don't want idle hands. You got to keep the wheels greased. You got to stay on target with everything.
As a creative type, I figure that I'm always going to do some sort of creativity, play music, draw. Not much of a painter anymore, but my dad still picks up a brush every great once in a while and
Mm-hmm.
works on a canvas. You just can't turn that off. Some
Nope.
people who are, bankers or lawyers, whatever, they might want to just cruise it off into the sunset on their boat and live off their millions. But I think we as creative professionals and those that have the spark, like you were saying, just go until you can't go anymore. And even
Yep.
if your voice just sounds like an old frog, you still have knowledge that's going to be valuable to the programming or other people's enjoyment and engagement with the music that we all love.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. And being able to continue things and manifest everything else, that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, for real. Make your mark on the world. So if somebody wanted
Yes.
to kind of get in touch with you and follow along and see what your hobbies or your habits are, is there a place on one of the social networks that we can connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, I just recently left the OLX platform. Just it was felt like it was running in quicksand. So I'm on the Blue Sky platform now that a lot of people are as well. Or a lot of people are joining because it's the skies are much clearer over there. You can just find me Deftones Freak FREEK over on Blue Sky as well as on Instagram. And I mean, like I use Tumblr every now and then. I haven't used it in a while. Facebook is I try not to open the door. I have a public profile on my Facebook page. There's a photograph of Eliza Schlesinger, the comedian.
Hmm.
She and I are in a photograph together. So yeah, there are ways to get in touch.
Nice. That's the thing I wanted to provide this podcast to be almost like I don't know, a comfortable mentor of sorts. And so, if somebody wanted to kind of reach out and say, hey, I heard you on this, just probably be another voice of somebody running behind you on a walkway and saying, hey, I heard you on. You know,
Hmm.
It'll be a really
Hmm.
cool opportunity for that. So
Thank you again for taking time to enlighten us with your experience and sharing some inspiration.
Troy, thanks for this opportunity. This has been a great conversation.
all right, take it easy.
You too. Talk to you soon.
This has been Troy Vera from the WIWHK podcast. Join us again, and we appreciate your time. Wish I would have known.